Last time when we were together, we were looking at procrastination, and I mainly covered what we procrastinate. I was talking about this from a biblical perspective with verses from various parts of scripture to understand the different types of things that we procrastinate and what the Bible has to say about all of that. Today, I'm going to be covering why do we procrastinate and how do we get a breakthrough. So that is the topics that I'm going to be covering today in terms of procrastination. Why do we procrastinate? So I've given about 7 reasons over here: sleep, laziness, a large amygdala, screen addiction, substance abuse, excessive stress, and even habit or habits. The habit of procrastinating itself. And when we talk about the habit of procrastination, it could be either your upbringing that has become a habit, and now you can't teach an old dog new tricks, maybe something like that, or it could be lockdown induced, like after the lockdown that took place at the end of March, and we've all, kind of shuffled into a different circadian rhythm in our lifestyle. And so we get up at different times, we go to bed at different times, and so the lockdown has induced some other patterns into our behavior, which has become a new habit or the new normal for us. And that's another reason why we procrastinate. I'm going to go into each of these points one by one, and then we will look at how to understand why we are procrastinating, what we are procrastinating. Okay, sleep. In the Bible, it says, I'm quoting from Proverbs 26, verses 13 to 16. A sluggard says, there is a lion in the road, a fierce lion roaming the street. As a door turns on its hinges, so a sluggard turns on his bed. A sluggard buries his hand in the dish, and he's too lazy to bring it back to his mouth. A sluggard is wiser in his own eyes than 7 people who answer discreetly. So this is talking about the character of a sluggard. Sleep, like a door turns on its hinges. So you know the situation very well. You wake up in the morning, but you don't get up in the morning, right? Because you turn from one position to the other position. You wake up, you're awake, but you don't want to get up. You want to linger in the bed for a longer time. That's why, the whole world understands this human behavior. And that is exactly the reason why they have a snooze button on our alarms. Because the snooze button will wake you up after, say, 5 minutes. Now, I went to, this number of years back, I went to visit, spend some time with a friend, and he took me to his house. He was in the other room, and I was in another room, and in between was the bathroom. And he wanted to get up early in the morning, and because a pastor is there in his house, and he wanted to spend more time in prayer before, meeting up with me, maybe cook tea for me or whatever it is. I don't know what he planned, but he had set the alarm for 6 o'clock. And I was tired after a very long journey. And that day I wanted to sleep a little bit more because I'd just been visiting a friend's house. Now, he had an alarm clock. And the alarm clock had a sound like a fire engine. So it started if you don't press the button for the snooze, it rings for 30 seconds continuously. 30 seconds it'll be ringing. Then it'll go off. Then after 5 minutes, again it will ring on its own. So these are snooze buttons that are automatically snooze. Let you snooze for some more time without you having to press the button. Now imagine a fire engine alarm going at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then it rings for 30 seconds. Okay. And then after that, after it rings for 30 seconds, it goes off to sleep, and again rings after 1 more minute or 5 minutes it rings. And imagine that this alarm clock was ringing from 6 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock in the morning, and he never got up. Eventually, I myself got up from bed to find out what this alarm clock is, where it is hidden, and find out how to way to tune it down. Why? Because people have got used to the alarm clock. Now we are in that state, where we just like our like a door on its hinges, we turn around, but we don't get up from bed. And then the 15th verse is even more interesting. A sluggard buries his hand in the dish. He's too lazy to bring it back to his mouth. Now, this one strange phenomenon I have seen. I've not seen it in other cities, but in Calcutta, I have seen in several families, the parents, the boy is in the 12th class or 10th class or 11th class or 9th class, and the mother will still feed him. He is too lazy to put the hand in the dish and then put it in his mouth. So the mother will feed him or feed her. Okay. So from childhood, they have grown up with the habit that only mother should feed them. And, some moms are kind of overprotective. So they feel some kind of an emotional, attachment, that nice feeling where they feed. Even now, they keep their children mentally retarded, emotionally retarded at the age of, kindergarten kids. Okay. And that is why such kind of children who are being, fed in their mouth, even when the child is in the 12th standard or in college for that matter, these children are emotionally retarded. They don't know how to, get along. They make a fool of themselves by trying to get along with other people. They are very naive. They don't understand how dangerous the world is because they've been always spoon-fed, hand-fed from childhood. And then another thing, unique thing that I've seen about such kind of children is they cannot eat anything that is spicy. You know why? Because they've been fed from childhood. And when anything is a little bit spicy, they'll say, it's too hot, I can't eat it. And the poor mom will, add some ghee or whatever it is to make the food a little bit palatable. So they are very, very fussy kids. And they cannot eat anything spicy. And this is something that I've seen when I went to Bengal. In few houses I've seen, homes I've seen, that parents are still like that. So here we are seeing a situation of a sluggard burying his hand in the dish, but too lazy to bring it to the mouth. So the Bible talks this about such kind of people. Sleep, the laziness, and sleep and laziness that is linked up along with it, where people don't want to even eat food, with their own hands. It looks like as if they are, doing weightlifting to take food and put it in the mouth. So that is one of the reasons why people procrastinate. The other reason is, of course, a large amygdala. Now, to explain what an amygdala is, let me take you to a screen and show you different parts of the brain. Okay, the amygdala is the green thing that you're seeing, okay, in this image. And the amygdala actually controls our emotions, behavior, our motivations. It processes fear, sadness, anxiety, pleasure, survival instincts, and also it is critically involved in memory. Now, the size of the amygdala varies from species to species in animals and mammals particularly. And it is correlational, the size is relational to aggression and laziness. A typical example is the male lions. They have very large amygdalas. So one of the things about male lions is they are extremely aggressive and also extremely lazy. In fact, we have made the lion as the king of the jungle, but actually lions maybe are very, very powerful, but they are not the hard workers. In fact, the hyenas and the wolves, they are the ones who are the hard workers. They will get the kill, and the the lion will come and hijack it. So the size of the amygdala varies from species to species, and the larger the amygdala, the greater the sense of aggression and laziness. Now, by aggression, I mean and laziness, I mean, what happens when you try to wake up a guy, particularly, when he's sleeping. I remember once I went and woke up my brother, and I asked him, Benji, it was in the afternoon or around 3 o'clock or something. I said, Benji, I wanted to wake him up for something important. And so I wake him up. woke my brother up, and he looked at me uh, as if he didn't recognize me for about a few seconds. Then when he did recognize me, he suddenly said, "Idiot, why did you wake me up?" Aggression. Okay. Sleep, aggression. So, of course, my brother is no more now. He passed away and he's gone to be with the Lord, but that's a different story altogether. But the size of the amygdala is linked with aggression and laziness. And interestingly, in humans, the amygdala is the most sexually dimorphic structure. That means it is different in size in females and different in males. And the strange thing is, if young males are castrated, okay, then the amygdala shrinks in size about 30%. The amygdala is part of the limbic system. So there is a particular role in which the size of the amygdala also plays in our, ability to, in our tendency, I should say, not ability, but the tendency towards laziness and sleep. Then, because we are on the subject of the amygdala, I think I should also talk to you about what is called as the amygdala hijack. Okay, and to explain an amygdala hijack, okay, whenever you see something, as you can see here in the screen, okay, whenever you see something on the screen, okay, you're seeing something over here, right? Then this goes to the, it goes straight to the hypothalamus. The whatever you see goes to the hypothalamus normally. From the hypothalamus, this goes to the occipital lobe, which is strangely, for whatever reasons, is at the back of the head. Then from the occipital lobe, whatever we see goes to the amygdala, and then we decide what kind of action to take. This is the normal process about what we see. But sometimes what happens is, when we see something, it goes straight to the hypothalamus, which is the usual procedure. And then instead of going to the occipital lobe, it is hijacked and straight away it goes to the amygdala. This is called as the amygdala hijack. How do I explain this? Very simple. I remember I went to visit a family of my church members in Calcutta, and so the wife was making some tea for me in the kitchen. And then she went into the kitchen to make some tea for me. All of a sudden, she screamed. So I told the husband, I think it must be some lizard or something. And she came out of the kitchen. Then I asked her, is it a lizard? She said, yes, it's in the sink. She went to remove a cup from the wash basin sink so that she could wash it and, pour a cup of tea for me. And somehow, it's a steel basin. A lizard had fallen in. Now it doesn't know how to come out of that steel basin because it's all slippery and it is full of water. Okay, I mean, it is watery, it is moist, so it can't get a grip and it's not able to come out. So when she went to put her hand, this thing must have jumped on her hand and she screamed. So what I did, I said, there's nothing serious to worry about. I went to the wash basin sink, the steel wash basin sink, and then I found where the lizard was. I picked it up with my hand and I threw it out of the window onto a tree outside, because they were on the, I think, the second or third floor. There was a tree nearby the house. I threw the lizard on that tree. And that's all. The matter was over. So she went back into the kitchen to cook, complete making her tea for me. Meanwhile, as I was coming back, the kids, the tiny ones, they were playing with balloons and etc. And on the floor, I saw one deflated balloon. Okay. You know what happens? An inflated balloon becomes into a deflated balloon. It was green in color. So I simply took that deflated balloon in my hand. Okay. And spread it across in my hand. And I went back to the kitchen and I told his wife, what do you think about this green balloon? Now I'm telling her that it's a green balloon. And she is seeing in my hand a green balloon. But her first impulse was not to, look at the green balloon. She screamed as if there was another lizard in my hand. You know why? Because she was astounded that I caught the lizard and I threw it out of the window. When I came back to the kitchen with something in mind, she again thought for no reason that it was a lizard. Even though I am saying it's a green balloon, she's thinking it's a lizard. And afterwards, when I told her, why did you get scared? After I told you it's a green balloon, she said, no, you said it's a lizard. She didn't even hear that I said it's a lizard. This is called as amygdala hijack. And that's why people get scared all of a sudden. So this is a typical example of a amygdala hijack. Anyway, this is not connected to about procrastination, but I'm talking about what the amygdala does. Okay. And one of the things that I told you earlier is the large size means people with larger amygdalas have a tendency to procrastinate. So how do we overcome that? We need to discipline. Okay, but I'll talk about that later. Then, when we talk about these things, the next problem that comes, and as you can see on the screen, point number 4 is screen addiction. Okay, that's another reason why people procrastinate today. What is screen addiction? Around 1.2 billion people, that means 1 in the 6 of the world's population, are adolescents aged between 10 to 19. Now, many are at risk of premature death, illness, and injury. In a major report, the World Health Organization lays out the major risks facing this vast demographic. And one of the dangers is what? Too much time spent staring at digital screens festers near the top of the pestilential heap. So what is that? That is spending time in video games, in social media, and porn. Now, why does this happen? Because we have human needs. And there are two types of human needs. One is basic needs, and then hormone stimulated needs. When you look at that, okay, the basic needs are thirst, hunger, sleep, sex, and self-preservation. Thirst is, of course, you'll suddenly feel thirsty and you go and drink. It's a drink. It's a bodily drive. Then hunger, because the body requires food, and so you go and buy food and eat, or make food and eat. And then sleep is very, very critical, because sleep is that one particular time when the brain detoxifies. Now, I don't have time to go into the chemistry behind how the brain detoxifies using the glial cells, but that's the time the brain detoxifies all the oxidants in the brain, all the the things that are accumulating in the brain, so that the brain can be once more fresh and alive for focused activity. If you don't sleep, then you will not be able to make quick judgments, and you will be slow in decision making, and you may make the wrong decisions, okay, because your mind is fuzzy. Okay, so sleep is very important. Then, of course, sex, procreation, and self-preservation. Now, all these, if you think very carefully, these basic needs and drives, they are in that part of the brain which is called as the hypothalamus. Now, if you look at the brain that is revolving before you, it's that red colored object. Okay, the red colored object that you see in this revolving brain is the hypothalamus. All right. So from this hypothalamus is actually, by many people, and anthropologists and others, they call this as the reptilian brain. That means this is the brain that we share in common with all animals, mammals, and even the reptiles. So it's called as the reptilian brain, and it drives the basic needs of the body, like thirst, hunger, sleep, sex, and self-preservation. But besides this, there are also other needs which are hormone stimulated needs, and which are the need for connection, the need for novelty, and the need for reward. Now, when we talk about the need for connection, when we interact with people face to face, now we are on Zoom, so we are not actually face to face with people. And I'm telling you, now I'm just telling you this, you can try this out and see. Just a few of you gather together in one place and have some 2 hours together in whatever activity, whether it is as MYF or young adults or whatever it is, not on Zoom or social media, but you come together and do something together just for 2 hours. Just see what happens to you for the next 3 days. You will be very happy. You know why? Because when there is face-to-face interaction with people, a chemical called serotonin is released in your brain. Okay. And serotonin is called by many of the biochemists as the happiness chemical. You know why? Because when this is released in the body, you actually feel happy. Okay. And this particular chemical is a long-lived chemical. It stays in the blood for a minimum of 3 days. Okay. So that's what serotonin is. And it's an important need. The need for connection is really very, very important. And that's why, one of these famous poets, if I'm not mistaken, I think it is John Donne who said, no man is an island. Okay. No man is an island. We all have this basic need for connecting with others. And that is because that's the only way in which we can actually experience happiness in our lives, which is when we are connected with each other in a face-to-face way. I'm not talking about network connections. Okay. Then there's the need for novelty, which is linked to another chemical called adrenaline. Okay. Now, adrenaline is released when we go on shopping sprees, hiking, traveling, adventure sports, extreme sports, video gaming, and etc. Adrenaline is released. Okay. Now, adrenaline, when it's released, you know what happens? That's the time we experience a rush inside us. We enjoy it. Enjoy that rush. And that's why some people go for bungee jumping. Okay. Because that rush of falling down and suddenly be held, and then coming back, that's because of adrenaline. Okay. So it's very good to have the experience for novelty, but not all the time. And it's not always. And that's why people get involved in adventure sports like MotoGP and all that. And, you have the same thing in video games. And basically, it's all about the adrenaline release. Okay. So this need for novelty is over there because we want to experience something fresh, something new. So traveling. Now, I know many years back, when in 1999, I went to Calcutta, and I was there in the English Methodist Church, the Tobone Methodist Church over there. I discovered that Christmas season, most of the people vanish. Okay. And then I tried to find out that, then I realized this was a problem. I didn't experience this when I was in Vellore as a pastor. I didn't experience this when I was in, in Pondicherry as a pastor. I didn't experience this when I was in Chennai as a pastor with the Chinmayanagar Methodist Church, with the Pondicherry Methodist Church, with the, Vellore Methodist Church. But I experienced this in Calcutta. Christmas season, most people are vanished. You know why? Because they have all gone away to some faraway places. Now, some of them, they can't travel by road. The entire journey, they'll be vomiting and going. But still, they have to go to some new place. What is that? That's the adrenaline release. Okay. The need for novelty. That's the reason why people go off to different places. And at that time, I labeled this in my own language. I called it as a vacation neurosis. People don't know what to do with their vacation at home, so they vanish off to some different places. And basically, it's actually the need for novelty so that they can experience this adrenaline rush. Okay. Now, the next thing is the need for reward. So this particular chemical, dopamine, is released when we experience a sense of reward. And dopamine pathway, if you look up at it very, very carefully, it is the dopamine pathway, technically speaking, in medical language, it is an addiction pathway. So what happens over here? Dopamine release. How does dopamine get released? When you're on social media, when you're texting, when you're involved in drug dependency, that means you need drugs and you became a drug addict. When you're engaged in alcoholism and you're an alcohol addict, or cigarettes or BD or gutka, such people have very poor impulse control. Okay. Now, linked with drug addiction and alcoholic addiction and cigarettes and BD and gutka, linked along with them is also social media, texting, and even video games. Okay. Why? Because they release this chemical called dopamine. Now, dopamine is a short-lived chemical, unlike serotonin, which is a long-lived chemical. So what happens is, when you go on to social media and you text and you get a reply back, okay, what happens is you get a little bit of a kick, okay, and women are more prone to this, including men, of course, but women are more prone to this, so to social media. Okay, so you get a kick and you enjoy that, and therefore they like to stay for long hours on social media. But basically, it is addiction. Why? Because you're getting, now when you get into social media and you get a response and it's a like, you know what happens? You get a dopamine rush, and this will stay for about half an hour or so in your body. Then after that, what happens? It goes down. Now you want to have that kick again, so you go back to social media. And then what happens is, previously it lasted for half an hour. Now, because you're frequently going back to the social media, its blood length, the time that it stays in the blood has become shortened. It was half an hour before, now it becomes 15 minutes. Then it becomes 10 minutes, then it becomes 5 minutes. It's a short-lived chemical. The more you use it, the shorter it lives in your body. So what happens? The need for kick is bad. I know of one girl, this came on on the news, that the mother saw her daughter write something in social media and she was so upset. She said, I'm coming back home, and she was driving from Manhattan back to one of the suburbs in New York, and it takes 40 minutes for her to drive. On the drive, she phoned her daughter and told her, I'm going to come back home and I'm going to take your cell phone away from you. And when she came back home, you know what happened? The girl committed suicide rather than being deprived of her social connections on media. That's because of dopamine. Okay. I remember in Bangalore, one of my friends, he was visiting me, and he told me that his niece one day came because she had damaged her phone. She wanted her uncle's iPhone, and many times he has given it to her. She said, so I want to give this, I want to take this, I want to use it for a few days. He refused to give her. You know why? Because he realized that she will become an addict, and he knew what he had no problems in giving it to her, but he didn't want to give her because she was becoming addicted to social media. So he said, no, I can't give you. And she was so upset and beside herself. When people are deprived of the dopamine release, one of the things that happens immediately is depression, endogenous depression. And as a result, some people will be very depressed and some people can even commit suicides. So this dopamine release is behind the screen addiction. And that's why many people are glued onto the screens. And this is what is called by World Health Organization as a pestilential disease at the top of the heap of dangers that affect children and young people. And that's related to dopamine. That's why dopamine, by people who are involved in biochemistry, they call it as the reward chemical, but it's a short-lived chemical. My suggestion is this: because dopamine is a short-lived chemical, don't depend on the dopamine kick, but rather try to go for a serotonin release. That means face-to-face interactions with people can be a real blessing to you. You try it out and see, because you all been in lockdown inside your rooms. Just see what happens the day you went out and spent some time with people together, and what feeling you had. That's because of serotonin. It lasts for 3 days. One day you have an experience, it lasts you for 3 days, actually. That's what serotonin does. So this is another reason why we are procrastinating, because of our addiction to the screens. Now, what are the symptoms of screen addiction? Are you staying up late on the computer? Do you get fidgety, anxious, or angry if you don't get your device? Is tech usage negatively impacting you at school, at home, and in other interests and activities at, in, and for church? Are you indicating that there is a difficult time getting virtual imagery out of your head? Do you get dreams of virtual imagery? Are you hiding your screen usage or your device from parents? Are you having a difficult time controlling your emotions? This is called as emotional dysregulation, and it is one of the symptoms of screen addiction. Do you get bored or apathetic very easily? Do you seem perpetually tired and wired? Are teachers complaining that you fall asleep frequently? All these, or one of these, or more of these, are their symptoms of screen addiction. So I explained screen addiction to you. And I also, while explaining screen addiction, I talked about substance abuse, about drug addiction and alcohol addiction. And most of the times we see poor impulse control in such kind of people. Whether you're screen addicted or alcohol addicted or drug addicted, you will have poor impulse control. Okay. The sixth thing that we see is excessive stress can cause you to postpone things. If you're going through a period of excessive stress, then you will tend to postpone things. You don't want to do it now because you don't have the energy. You're emotionally drained. You're going through enormous degree of stress and you don't know what to do at this time. The only thing that comes to you is to lie down and sleep, So excessive stress can cause that. Now in the Bible, it tells in Proverbs 24 and verse 10, if you falter in the time of trouble, how small is your strength? And then in Galatians chapter 6 and verse 9, it says, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Okay. So stress is something that all of us will go through, and somehow we need to overcome the stress. In fact, let me read for you a poem which is actually written in Hindi. And there are a few of you who understand Hindi. And for your sake, I'm reading this. For the other's sake, what I'm doing is I will translate one portion of it. And I will not read the whole poem, but just to cut short on time, I'll just read the first and the last stanza. This poem was written by Sohan Lal Dwivedi. Actually, many people thought that this poem was originally written by Harivansh Rai Bachchan, that is Amitabh Bachchan's father, but that's not true. It's true that Harivansh Rai Bachchan had written many poems, and those who study Hindi in Kendriya Vidyalayas in their 10th class, 9th class, or 11th and 12th, whatever classes, they will have to learn poems of Harivansh Rai Bachchan. Now, this was not written by Harivansh Rai Bachchan, but written by another person who used to write stories for little children. He has written many stories for children. Okay. And his name is Sohan Lal Dwivedi. So let me read this out for you in Hindi. Okay. This is the title of this poem is Koshish Karne Wale. That means the people who take effort in spite of all difficulty. Okay. That's the title of the poem. So let me read this for you in Hindi first of all. लहरों से डरकर नौका पार नहीं होती, लहरों से डरकर नौका पार नहीं होती, कोशिश करने वालों की हार नहीं होती। नन्ही चींटी जब दाना लेकर चलती है, चढ़ती दीवारों पर 100 बार फिसलती है, मन का विश्वास रगों में सहस भरता है, चढ़कर गिरना, गिरकर चढ़ना ना अकरता है, आखिरी उसकी मेहनत बेकार नहीं होती, कोशिश करने वालों की हार नहीं होती। The last stanza I am reading. असफलता एक चुनौती है, स्वीकार करो, क्या कमी रह गई देखो और सुधार करो, जब तक ना सफल हो नींद चैन को त्यागो तुम, संघर्ष का मैदान छोड़ मत भागो तुम, कुछ किए बिना ही जय जयकार नहीं होती, कोशिश करने वालों की हार नहीं होती। What it's saying is, those who take effort in spite of all difficulties, they will find triumph in the end. The boat will never reach its destination if it is afraid of the waves. The ant, the tiny ant, can take a grain and try and climb a grain that is 2 or 3 times bigger than it, and it climbs the wall. As it climbs the wall, it slips and falls down 100 times. It doesn't give up. It It goes back to the grain, picks it up from the floor, and again tries to climb the wall. And as it keeps struggling and struggling, in the end, it triumphs and manages to take that grain across. Why? Because कोशिश करने वालों की हार नहीं होती. Those who take effort will never lose in the end. And so the book of Proverbs tells the same thing. If you falter in time of trouble, how small is your strength? Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Paul tells this in the book of Galatians chapter 6 and verse 9. So therefore, we don't need to make excess stress sometimes as an excuse to postpone doing the things that we need to complete. And finally, I talked about habit. Habit either because of your upbringing or because of the lockdown has brought in new behavior patterns. But by habit, I mean we need to overcome this. I remember about one of my nieces, she, whenever I went to visit, I would have my room all clean and neat and tidy. And she, in her room, would be her bed, which is a large king size bed. It's full of all kinds of clothes that have been just washed and they've all been dumped on the bed. And she'll go and lie plop on it and she'll go and sleep off. Of course, she gets very tired. She goes to office in the morning. She's working as an engineer, construction engineer in one construction firm. And then she comes back in the evening and she's tired. She has a dinner and she goes to bed. And she doesn't make her. But this was her habit even when she was in school. Why? Because it's become a habit. And sometimes the habit to stay clean is a habit. The habit to be disciplined is a habit. Some just recently, a few days back, some of the students who were going to be for the confirmation and baptism classes, they had come to my house along with their parents. And the people were astounded by the way in which my house was clean and organized. Okay. I mean, cleanliness was not the most important thing, but the way in which my house was, even the kitchen, they were surprised that I had kept things in a very systematic fashion over there. Because, of course, I know I have to cook and I should know where what is, So if I keep it in the wrong place, I'll run into trouble. And that's one of the reasons why I never ask anyone to wash the vessels in my house. Because if they wash the vessels, they'll put the spoon and the plate and the vessels in some place. And when I need it while I'm cooking, I won't be able to find it. So it's always what I do is I wash my own vessels and I put them in the right place. And so I have that discipline is there. Now, that is the way we need to have discipline. Habit has to be there. A good habit is also a learned habit. And a bad habit is also a learned habit. So we need to overcome these factors. These are the things that affect us, and why we are procrastinating is because of these things. Now we need to overcome these things. Okay. So finally, I'm going to be talking about, I've talked about what we procrastinate and why do we procrastinate. The next thing that I need to talk about is how do we get the breakthrough. Now, one of the things is you can create a pie chart of your activity. Just for 1 or 2 days, or maybe for 1 week, you do prepare a chart. That means you got up at this time, you went to sleep at this time in the night, okay? Or you got up at this time, you brushed your teeth at this time you had your breakfast. It took so much of time for you to have your breakfast. Then you went for office, or you sat on your laptop and you're doing your work and you worked till so much amount of time. Then you went to prepare lunch, or there was lunch already prepared at home by your mom or dad, and you had it and you took so much of time. And then after that, you were chatting with friends and you record that particular amount of time. So you prepare a pie chart. Nowadays, of course, if you go into your cell phones, you have something which is called it's called as, let me just show it for you on the screen. Let's just stop the screen share over here for a moment. I don't know if you people can see this on my cell phone. Okay. Okay. If you see over this, I spent 5 hours and 2 minutes, it says, on my cell phone. Okay. And out of which 2 hours was on YouTube. Okay. And 1 hour and 29 minutes was on WhatsApp. And then 1 hour and 11 minutes was on gallery. What was I doing on gallery? I was basically, using one digital imaging software to do some, image modification work. And why was I on YouTube? Because whenever I go to the kitchen to cook my, lunch or breakfast or dinner, I put some music on YouTube. I've created some, playlists. So I put them on, and that's the time I can listen to music, cook my food, and have my meal, and I come back. So that's how you can see 2 hours on YouTube. Okay. Plus, sometimes I have to upload things on YouTube, So all that time is included over here. So if you look at this, in each of our phones, we have, if you look into your phone, you go to settings, and you will find in the settings on your phones, usually you'll find a setting which is called as, one is called as device care, and then the other one is called as digital well-being. Okay. So digital well-being. Okay. Now, when I open this live, okay, this is yesterday's. That was a screenshot that I had taken a few days back. This is yesterday's. Okay. Now, yesterday's screenshot of my what I did yesterday. Okay. You can see it on the screen. 1 hour and 36 minutes on WhatsApp. Because yesterday, I don't know why, I was talking to a lot of people. I told I was talking to one Jonathan in Mumbai. Then I was talking to one Akash Deep in Bhubaneswar. He's one of the people who is going to get confirmation in my church. So I was talking to him. And Netflix, I was there for 1 hour, 3 minutes. Then Tekata Bible, I was in my Bible about for 59 minutes. Okay. So this digital well-being in your cell phones will tell you whether you're a screen addict or you're not a screen addict. So it is important for us to create a pie chart of our digital well-being. That will tell you, once you know what the disease is, you can take some steps to rectify the problem. Have a clear goal. Clear goals means you should know what you should do each day. If you don't have clear goals and just to try to walk through the day, you will not be able to complete your goals. Okay. Warren Buffett, he said, when he talked about clear goals, he said, each day, write down 5 things that you want to do today. 5 things you write down that you must complete today. Don't make 10 things, don't make 15 things. Write down 5 things. And then after that, he said, out of the 5 things, choose one and do only that one thing for one day. Strange, isn't it? What Warren Buffett is saying, this great very, very rich man, and also very devout Christian. What is he saying? He's saying, don't bite more than you can chew. Or he's trying to tell in simple language, don't spread yourself too thin. So have clear goals. The problem with many of us is we try to do too many things in one day and we accomplish nothing. Have one thing in your mind, finish it. Then go to the next thing the next day. Set priorities. Now, the best example is in Proverbs chapter 24 and verse 27. Okay, let me read that for you. Proverbs 24. I'm reading it from my cell phone. Proverbs 24. Or if you have your Bibles, you can also jump to that, and verse 27. Okay, what does it say? It's very, very clear. It says, put your outdoor work in order and get your fields ready. After that, build your house. If you're building your house, what is the first thing that you should do? Finish all the outdoor work. Then get the field ready. After that only you build the house. So clearly there's a priority, which comes first. Okay. And you set your priorities. Now you can't have children before marriage, right? You have marriage first, then you have children. So there's a priority over there. In the same way, you must set the priorities of what you would do each day. Okay. So be single-minded, choose 5 and do one. Set your priorities. And then in point 5, I've written, be single-minded, choose 5 and do one, which I already mentioned a few minutes before in Warren Buffett's example. Then use stimulants. Some people use coffee. For some people are stimulants. You talk to people and you get stimulated and you become fresh in your mind. Activities are good. Games are good. Going and playing, badminton or table tennis, will freshen up your mind. So this is a good way of, detoxifying your stressed out mind. Then the 6th point in getting a breakthrough is always focus on value. Unfortunately, in today's world, everybody is bothered about quantity. How many members are there in your church? And I think this is the most stupid question that we can ever think of. Okay, very, very stupid question. Why do people ask this question about, how many people are there in your church? The real question should be, what is the nature of relationship in your church members, among your church members? Is there love between them? We need to focus on quality, not on quantity. Quantity is sometimes automatic. But if you labor for quantity, you will never get quality. If you labor for quality, quantity may automatically come. But it is not dependent on quantity because you are valuing, you're focusing on values. Okay. Avoid urgency. Plan for tomorrow, tonight. That means today, before you go to bed, you plan what you should do tomorrow. You plan the time that you go to bed today. That's very important. Avoid urgency. Control waste. Now, controlling waste means controlling wasting your resources, wasting your energy, wasting your food, wasting your time. And if you think very carefully, one of the famous management techniques is called a Sigma 6. I don't know, some of you who are in management and who have gone through management courses, you would have come across Sigma 6. What does Sigma 6 actually do? One of the key things in applying Sigma 6, whether it's an industry or whether it's a small, medium business, whatever it may be, applying Sigma 6 means controlling waste. At the very core of Sigma 6 is controlling waste. Waste of personnel, waste of finances, and waste of resources and waste of time. That's what Sigma 6 is all about. Now, in your life, you need to apply the rule of controlling waste. What are you wasting in your life? You're wasting your time, you're wasting your energy, you're wasting your mental, capacities. Control waste. Then the last thing that I want to tell you in getting a breakthrough is scheduling escape. Now, escape is very much needed, and it is linked along with the use of stimulants like having games and stuff like that. Scheduling escape means you must have a release valve. When every pressure cooker has got a release valve. When the pressure becomes large, what will the pressure cooker valve do? It will go up and it will release all the excess steam. We need to schedule our escape in a similar way. And that's why I sometimes think that maybe it's a good idea to go off to some far off city, as people do, Earlier, as to call it as vacation neurons, but sometimes such kind of vacations are needed for people. For some people particularly. I don't know if it's needed for all, but for some particular category of people, it is certainly very much needed. Have a release valve. Okay. I remember about one parent who had come to my house when I was in Calcutta, in Toburn, and he came along with a bank employee. I mean, he was the director of this American Express Bank. And since we had an, FCRA account with the American Express Bank, this branch director or manager, I don't remember what he was, he came along with his cousin, who is an advocate. And why did they come to my house? Because this advocate's son, in the 7th class, he failed in his exams and he was not promoted to the next class. Now, the boy was in Calcutta Boys School and I was in Toburn Methodist Church. And everybody knew that the pastor of the Toburn Methodist Church is a board member in Calcutta Boys School and in Calcutta Girls School. So they wanted me to, go and talk to the principal. This is the same thing that happened, when James and John, they used their mother to talk to Jesus, that why don't you tell Jesus, we'll sit at right hand and we'll sit at left hand, same kind of thing. So they wanted me to go and do the guzarish or the request. Then I tried to find out what happened, because I didn't want to get involved in this, mainly because I tried to explain that I can't get involved in this because there is a process in which a child is promoted to the next class. The child is not simply failed. The child, if there is a child who fails, then all the subjects in which the child has failed, all those teachers will be present in the principal's office. The class teacher will be present in the principal's office. And they will discuss with each other, okay, he has failed in all these subjects. The principal will discuss with each of these teachers together. And they will finalize and decide, okay, whether we should promote this child or not to the next class. When a panel has, processed a child and they have seen, no, I think the child should continue in this class because he doesn't have any knowledge to go into the next class, then only they fail a student. Now, when a panel has passed a student, who am I to go and disturb the panel and say, no, let's go and promote him? I don't have that veto authority. And even if I did have, I wouldn't want to do it. So I sat and talked with the father. I was talking to the father. What happened? He said, I have done the best for my son. And the fact that he failed in the 7th class, I can't believe it. I feel like I want to commit suicide. I said, no, you don't need to commit suicide because let me just find what happened to your son. I have done the best for my son. What have you done for your son? Please tell me. Morning, he goes to school. Then he finishes his class. He comes around 2:45 or so home. He has his lunch. After he has his lunch, by the time he has his lunch, he goes after his lunch to one tuition class. After his lunch, he goes around 3:30 or 4. He goes to one tuition class, along with where other students are taking tuition, and he is there till 5 o'clock in the evening. So after the school is over, he has lunch. He goes to tuition where he is there till 5 o'clock. And then at 5 o'clock, he comes home. He has a cup of tea. Mom gives him a cup of tea, has a little bit of time. And 6 o'clock, another tuition teacher comes to his house. And this tuition teacher will take tuition from 6 o'clock onwards up to 9 o'clock onwards. So now the father can't believe why he failed. Can you believe that? From early morning, from 8 o'clock onwards, okay, to 9 o'clock in the night, the boy has been doing nothing but studying. What will stay in his head? I told the father, 100% sure, that's why your son is failing. You know why? The child has not been given a release wall. There's no time for playing games. This is what happens when parents, over pressurize their children into getting marks. So it is very important, both for children as for adults, that we give a time of release. It's good for them to go outside in the field, play cricket, basketball, table tennis, badminton, whatever game. Give them time to release. If they have to study at all, at home, let it be for 1 hour, maximum 2 hours. But I wouldn't even recommend 2 hours. I think 1 hour of solid study is more than enough at home. If they do 1 hour of study or 40 minutes of study, it's best. After that, let them be free. Let them talk in the house, play in the house, whatever it is. If you all the time tell them from 8 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock in the night to study, nothing will be there in their brains. So we need to, in the same way, we also need to schedule escape. Children need escape. We need escape from overworking. And if we do that, we will be able to break through the habit of procrastination. So I stop over here, okay, and end this topic on procrastination. I've talked about various things, and I hope and pray that all of you will take the time to discipline your lives so that you'll be able to skip over this bad habit of procrastination. It affects everybody, and be able to live a life that is a little more disciplined. So God bless you all. Thank you so much. Let us just bow down our heads in prayer. Okay. Almighty and everlasting God, we thank you for this time together, and we pray that everything that we have heard outwardly with our ears will bear fruits in our lives inwardly, Lord, so that the mark of discipline will fill us with the stamp of the Holy Spirit. In Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen.